Hello, welcome back to Planet 40k. Today we've got another list build here from one of our members that's recently joined the channel. So we're going to be going through his list, analysing it, talking about the tactics, and at the end of it I'm going to give my take on what I would change with the list. So if you do want to get involved in this kind of stuff, there'll be a blue join button and it'll tell you exactly what you'll get. There'll be loyalty badges, custom emojis. It isn't actually part of the perks, but the Planet 40k elite members and upwards, they're the ones that are going to be getting the personal list build reviews here on the channel. So today Joe M has decided to give me 2,000 points from his personal list that he's going to be using for tournaments, so I'm expecting a decent list here. So let's begin with the list then. He's got a battalion detachment, so of course you need between 2 and 3 HQs and between 3 and 6 troops. And the dynasty, he's actually gone with the custom dynasty. He's gone with Eternal Conquerors and Relentlessly Expansionist. So of course the Eternal Conquerors is objective secured, and Relentlessly Expansionist is a pre-game movement up to 6 inches before the game even begins, which is really useful for getting up the board or just getting into a better position for line of sight. So let's kick off with the very first HQ of the list, and this is the Warlord. It's going to be an Overlord model, and there's a little hint of what's to come because I've put a 1 next to the Overlord's name there. This Overlord is going to have the War Scythe for 5 points, but that's going to be upgraded to a Void Reaper, which will make this weapon strength 7 minus 4 AP with the damage being 3, and it's going to be ignoring those abilities that ignore wounds. So a very melee based character there. The Warlord trait that he's going to be taking is Eternal Madness. This is basically rerolls to all your melee wound rolls. So strength 7 is likely going to be wounded on 3s anyway, if not 2s against toughness 3 models, and then you're going to be rerolling everything as well. So that's the first Overlord. Let's look at the second one. The second one is going to have the Dynastic Heirloom Stratagem for 1 command point, which will allow a second relic within the army, and he's gone with the Voltaic Staff. So he's upgrading the Staff of Light to the Voltaic Staff, 18-inch range, assault 4, strength 6, minus 2 AP, damage 2, and he's 6 to hit at 2 additional hits, and then in melee it's the same stats without the actual 6s exploding there. But overall, very decent weapon to put on a character model. And then he's gone for a third Overlord. I've not really seen this in the list much where you've gone with 3 Overlords, but this is the third one. Again, you're going to be using the Dynastic Heirloom Stratagem because you can use it twice because you've got the Strike Force battle going off. So we'll go over that relic in a moment, but first of all he's got the War Scythe, another 5 points again, strength 7 minus 4 AP, damage 2, so another very melee based character there. And then that relic that he's chosen is the Veil of Darkness relic, so he can be moving a core unit anywhere in the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy models, which I think is one of our best pieces of tactical war gear that we've got in our codex. Of course, all 3 of these Overlords, the main reason you're taking them is the Mine Will Be Done ability, so that core units within 9 inches get to add 1 to the attack hit rolls. Because you've got 3 different Overlords here, we've got to presume you've got 3 core units. Then finally, I'm just going to mention that you've got at least 1 Noble here, where you've actually got 3. So the command protocols are not only going to be active for the army, but also very easy to use with 3 Overlords dishing them out. So that's the HQs dealt with. It's coming in at a total of 295 points there. Next we move on to the troops. Now he needs 3 troops here, so the first one is 2 units of 5 Immortals, 85 points per Immortal unit. He's gone with the Ghost Blasters for 30-inch range, rapid fire 1, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. Pretty decent range there. They're going to be staying back, holding an objective and whatnot. Anything comes close within rapid fire range, you're going to be taking double shots at them. They're likely going to be wounded on 3s if not 4s, and minus 2 AP is pretty decent as well. The third and final unit within the troops section is a unit of warriors. Now he's only got a unit of 10 of them. We'll mention why later in the video. They're going to have the Ghost Reapers, the 12-inch range weapons, which are assault 2, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. So it's the same stat line as the Immortals Ghost Blasters, except this is only 12-inch range as opposed to 30. And of course they're assault 2. Now for both of the units you can use the Disintegration Capacitors Stratagem for 1 command point. On the Ghost weapons, any unmodified hit rolls of a 6 will automatically wound. It usually works much better on a 20-man warrior unit, but it's still going to do fairly well on a 10-man unit with 20 shots there. So that's the troops coming in at 300 points. And of course the battalion detachment is now legal. He's got his 3 HQs and he's got his 3 troops. So let's move on to the elite section. To start us off, he's gone with the unit of Cryptothralls. Now notice they're in the elite section. They will take up a battlefield slot because there's no crypt deck within this list. However, these will likely be used just for his secondary objectives, which we'll go over later in the analysis section of the video. But for now, just bear in mind that the weapons they've got the 12-inch double pistols at strength 5 minus 2 AP 1 damage, and the scythe limbs, which are strength 5 minus 1 AP and 1 damage. So they're pretty decent, but they're much better of course when they've got a crypt deck model close by. Then he's gone for a unit of 5 5 flayed ones. Another unit that doesn't get much use at the moment. So these are coming in with the Flare Claws, which is strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage, and any rolls of a 6 will score an additional hit against the non-vehicle model. They've then got the Terrifying Foes aura, which subtracts 2 from the leadership characteristics of models within 3 inches of this unit. So if there's any morale test taken, there's a better chance of them failing. But the most important part of their datasheet is the fact that they've got the Dimensional Translocation ability, which is effectively Deep Strike, coming in from turn 2 onwards, more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Now the reason for taking these guys is for your secondaries. Again, very similar to the Cryptophrals. You can put them behind enemy lines, and whatever secondary you're taking, or whether it's an action or whatnot, these guys can get you some points. And at the very least, they can just cause a distraction, which isn't too bad for 65 points there. He's then got 3 more units within the elite section, and he's gone with 3 identical units of Lich Guard, 5 models per unit. He's gone with the Boards and Swords selection. So the Hyperface Swords are strength 6, -3 AP, 1 damage. And they've got the Dispersion Shields, 4+ invulnerable save and a +1 to the armor saves, giving them a 2+ armor. So very resilient as a unit. And as he's got 3 of these units, they're very likely going to be going with those Overlords, 1 Overlord per Lich Guard unit, which is going to pair very nicely with their Guardian Protocols aura. So while a Dynasty Noble unit is within 3 inches of the Lich Guard, they cannot be targeted from any ranged attacks. Now they can't be targeted anyway because of the Lookout Sir bubble. However, there are some weapons within the game that ignore the Lookout Sir ability, such as snipers and whatnot. I mean, we've got our own unit within our Necron Codex with the Death Marks, they can do that kind of thing. But with the Guardian's Protocol aura, it even stops those from firing at the Overlords. So that's the elite section done now. That's 525 points for that section. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fast attacks, and he's gone with 3 units of 5 Canoptic Scarabs. You rarely see a list nowadays without any Canoptic Scarabs because they just do absolute work in terms of scoring your points and screening your guys. Now, in terms of damage output, they don't do much, if anything at all. But you do have the 2 stratagems that are available, the Self-Destruction stratagem for 1 command point and the Enslaved Protector stratagem for 1 command point, giving those Canoptic units the ability to heroically intervene as if they were a character, which is going to tie up units that are coming inbound. So those 3 Canoptic Scarab Swarms are going to cost the fast attack slots 225 points. So almost there with the list. Now we're going on to the heavy support section, and he's gone with 3 identical units of Doomsday Arcs. They've of course got their 10 Gorse-Flayer arrays on the sides, but the main reason for bringing them into Doomsday Cannon for the strength 10 -5 AP and the damage is D6. But that's if they're stationary. Of course, if they do move, the range goes down to 36. The strength goes down to 8, the AP goes down to -2, and the damage goes down to D3. So ideally these things need to stay stationary in order to use that high power profile. Then on top of that, they've got the Quantum Shielding for the 5+ invulnerable save, and they can't be wounded on less than a 4+. Which makes them very resilient. So with 3 of those within this list, the heavy support section is coming up to 510 points. So that just leaves the dedicated transport slot, which is going to be for 1 single Ghost Arc, which will of course be carrying those 10 warriors that we mentioned in the troop section, because these arcs can repair D3 warriors per turn, and if you're using the stratagem, it can turn into D6 warriors instead of D3. It's also got the Quantum Shielding like the Doomsday Arc does, for the extra resiliency within the army as well. So that transport of course is 145 points. So this brings the list to a total of exactly 2,000 points. So let's talk about the tactics of what Joe's going to be doing with this list. So first of all, having objectives secured on all of these units, as well as that Relentless Expansionist, means he's going to be moving up the board, whether it's his Lich Guard, getting a pre-game movement, or whether it's even the Doomsday Arcs, because even though they need to remain stationary for the high power profile, this is a pre-game move, so those Doomsday Arcs can get into a better line of sight before the game actually begins, and then when it's your turn, they won't have actually be considered to have moved. But as there's quite a lot of units within this list, that Eternal Conqueror's objective secured ability is going to come in clutch. So he's actually messaged me a bit of additional information here in terms of what secondaries he's going to be taking. He's given me 2 secondaries that he's going to be taking. The first one is Engage on All Fronts, so scoring 2 victory points for having units within the table quarters, and the second one being Retrieve Victorious Data, which is an action for infantry models to be doing. So just bear those 2 in mind when we talk about all these units here. So the first one we've already kind of mentioned, the Overlords are going to be protected with the Lich Guard, with the Guardian's Protocols aura, and of course that Overlord is going to be giving back the command protocols because it's a character, so a very nice bit of synergy there. So 3 very tasty little Death Stars running up the board, because he's also kitted those Overlords out for melee. But again, with that Relentlessly Expansionist, those Lich Guard are going to be going 6 inches pre-game, and they're not going to be really going for objectives in my opinion. They're probably going to be going hunting, trying to take out units, or even just tying up units. Because of the shields, they can last quite a fair amount of turns tying up some of the bigger and badder stuff. Now there is one unit of course that could use the Veil of Darkness relic, because one of those overlords has the Veil of Darkness relic, so this could be used in any turn really. It's going to be going up the board, maybe at the back end of the board, in your enemy's deployment area, and with Eternal Conquerors again, this could be something valid late game to be stealing an objective. As for the Immortals, they're not going to be doing much other than staying back and shooting. They're going to be staying on your home objectives, counting as 10 models because of Eternal Conquerors, so don't expect too much movement from them unless the objectives are slightly out of their deployment. They may move there, but other than that I believe they're going to be staying back and firing. And bear in mind the two secondaries again, engage on all fronts, so if there are two units they're probably going to be split into two different quarters here for engage on all fronts, or if he wants to go for the retrieve Octarius data, he could be using these Immortals to do that too. Then he's got his Canoptic Swarms. They could be going pretty much anywhere. They're fast enough to get to the mid-ground, no man's land area of the battlefield, collecting objectives. They're not an infantry unit, so they can't be doing that retrieve Octarius data, but engage on all fronts will be definitely helped with these, but they can also be tying down units and just causing an absolute stir. Now another alternative that they could be doing is just defending those Doomsday Arcs, because the Doomsday Arcs have the blast ability. Once they get caught in melee, it's going to be a bit of a problem to fire the weapon, so maybe these Scarab Swarms are going to be there to defend the Doomsday Arcs. Then we've already mentioned that the warriors are going in the Ghost Arc. Because of the speed of the Ghost Arc, they can pretty much be going anywhere, whether it's the no man's land or into your opponent's deployment zone. You kind of work that one out on the fly depending on your opponent's list and army. The flayed ones, they're pretty much going to be deep striking, I believe, coming in behind enemy lines with the dimensional translocation ability of course, and they will very likely be doing one of those secondaries, especially doing an action because they're not shooting and the melee attacks aren't exactly massively great in terms of damage output, so they're very likely to be doing an action to be scoring some victory points. Then going back to the engage on all fronts secondary, now you've got the Cryptophrals in here and there's no Cryptech model, however you could opt to put these in strategic reserves for a single command point, bring them out late game to be used with engage on all fronts, but other than that engage on all fronts shouldn't really be much of a problem because of the sheer amount of units that are within this list, so I think you'll definitely be maxing out on that secondary at the very least. So as for my analysis, I love the three little Death Stars you've got with the Overlords and the Lich Guard. They're a massive distraction. If I was going against that, that would be my priority number one because they're coming in with that 6-inch pre-game movement as well. And we've also forgot the Relentless March ability from the Overlord as well to add one more inch to the movement as well for a very good combination there. I also like the fact that you've got units of 5 Canoptic Scarabs because they're going to be avoiding blast, and the unit coherency is obviously not as restricted as it would be if they had 6 models within the unit. So definitely something good there. As for the Doomsday Arcs, they've got the blast ability. You guys know that I don't like the blast ability on these arcs because they're not going to be moving, and as soon as they get tagged, they're in trouble. So what I would do, I would take all 3 of those Doomsday Arcs, I'd bin them off 510 points, and instead I'd be exchanging them for 3 units of heavy Locust Destroyers, max units of 3, so that'd be a total of 9 of these guys. It would be 540 points, but I'd probably get rid of those Cryptophrals. That's 40 points right there. So the reason I'd be taking the heavy Locust Destroyers is very simple. They've got the ability to move and fire, so they're not going to be sitting ducks. They can be moving onto objectives, the mid-ground, just getting out of dodge if you see a threat coming in. They've got 9 strength 10 shots, they've got 3 d3 damage, there's no d6 shots like the Doomsday Arc has, and there's no d6 damage like the Doomsday Arc has, and no blast keyword on these weapons. Now the downside to that of course is they can't be firing into combat, however we do have command protocols that are available to us, one of which will allow the units to fall back and still shoot. Then finally Locust Heavy Destroyers, they're going to be allowed to reroll 1s to hit. So with those 9 shots, rerolling 1s, you should on average get 7 hits there, causing 5.8 wounds if you're going against infantry models. However, if you're going against vehicles that are toughness 6 or more, with your 7 hits you should be causing 4.7 wounds on average. With the 3d3 damage, that's going to be a total of 28 damage on average. So that's doing absolute bits. So that's one of the changes I'd make. The second change I'd make is probably changing one of those Lich Guard units that have the swords and shields and turning them into a unit that takes the war scythe. So I'd probably do it on the Veil of Darkness unit if I'm honest, because that unit is going to be going in hot into the enemy deployment and you want to be causing as much chaos as you can, so I'd probably ditch the shields for just that one unit there. Then the final thing, which isn't necessarily a change to the list, I've been given 2 out of 3 of the secondaries that you could take. Now the third one I'd probably go with the Code of Combat secondary. Because you've got 3 Overlords that are quite choppy, you're going to be scoring 3 victory points for every unit that a noble destroys, so I would be quite tempted to take this one. Between the 3 of them, you'd hope that they can take out some units there. So that's Joe M's 2,000 point list all summed up for us. Guys, what do you think to the list, and what would you change and why? And remember, if you want to get involved in this kind of stuff, there'll be a link in the description for information of how to join the channel, and if you're an elite member or above, send me a message and we'll get a list reviewed for you. So guys, that's the list review today. Sub if you are new, drop a like on the way out. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.